Good afternoon or good evening. Thanks for joining us wherever you are in the world today, and welcome to today's webinar or this afternoon's webinar. Today's topic is investing in the UK's Northern Powerhouse. We're looking at top cities and areas for 2024. This is part of our monthly webinar series, and you can find all the previous titles and edits on our YouTube channel. My name's Andrew Siegel. I'm managing partner. I look after UK, Europe, Hong Kong, and I'm joined by Mark Bester. He's based out in South Africa and he runs our African operation. I'm also pleased to be joined today by Matthew Hawkins and Martin Logan from Addressed. They'll be talking about the current rental market in the Northern Powerhouse, and really what today's modern tenants are looking for. As we all know, it's becoming a sort of a buy-to-let market or a rental market. So it's important when you're investing to get the fundamentals right, and we'll cover that today with you. At some point, you'll be able to see, or on the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A, question and answers box. So at the end, we'll run through a few bits today, but stay on, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A panel. So we'll run through anything that comes up throughout the presentation from any of the speakers, and we're happy to cover any area of interest later on. So if I could have the next slide, please. So a little bit of history. We were started by Andy Foote, who's our chairman. He started the business due to the fact that he had a bad experience. He bought something off plan in Spain. There was no communication, no transparency, no guidance really. It was all a bit of a disaster. The property's fine, he still got it and it worked very well, but that customer care side was lacking really, so it didn't make it a good experience. So he said, surely we can make this a lot better. And when he started his property company, he wanted to put customer care first and foremost, and I think the track record speaks for itself. So wherever you are in the world, we can support you. We have offices in the UK, UAE, South Africa with Mark, and to support our clients wherever they are in the world. We don't sell in those regions. We only sell in the UK. It's the most invested, we believe, the best market to invest in the world. So we have those offices to support those investor clients in that particular region. And having been a distribution partner for some big developers in the UK, we've transitioned and rebranded 2.5-3 years ago into Joseph Mews, where we're partnered with various developers as well as property companies that allow us to access the best stock in the country. And of course, this in turn gives our investors the best opportunities. We often get asked by clients the reason why we're called Joseph Mews. This is also based around Andy. As mentioned, he's been very successful in the property business, but the biggest success he'll tell you would come from the brain tumor charity. This is the largest brain tumor charity in the world. It's merged with others since Andy found this one, and it's an incredible achievement that he started it from scratch, and he's raised tens of millions of pounds and made a huge impact on life expectancy and successful outcomes, really thanks to the huge research programs, and that's made possible by the funds that the charity has raised. And we do different events, and Johnny, one of the another managing partner here, interviews different people, and it's all about gaining awareness and raising money for the charity. We named the business after Joseph, who was Andy's son, who sadly at 8 years old passed away from a brain tumor, and so the charity was made in his name to give legacy to Andy, his son, and all the people involved. If I could have the next slide, please. We've been around a while, and you can tell I'm old, and been in property a very, very, very long time. And under the Joseph Mews brand and guys, we've delivered 3,500 apartments. We're just delivering a couple of different developments as we speak, and that'll be now delivered and developed over 34. It's now 35, 36 different developments. And one of the webinars we talked about before was how to build a portfolio. And we have a property portfolio, and a lot of our clients that have the wherewithal, in fact 28%, are repeat purchases with us. So I think that shows hopefully what a good job we're doing. And we've delivered about £500 million worth of property to date, and obviously that's increasing every month. If I could have the next slide, please. Our role technically is a promoter, or we sort of joint venture with developers. So there's some names on there which you may not have heard of. They're very well known in the property investment world, and we partner with them. And the developers like us because they carry on and build and develop. We then take the product, we do all the sales and marketing, which is pretty straightforward, but then we do things like handover, snagging. So we do all the customer care, furnishings, delivery, lettings, which we'll come on to later. So we're a one-stop shop for the developer, so they love us because they can just get on and do their bit. And we're a one-stop shop for our investor clients because we're a one-stop shop, so we can do everything for them. And we have clients, as I mentioned, from all over the world. We have a lot of clients that have never even been to England. They just know it's a good market to invest in. So we're geared up to make it an armchair investment, to make it easy for our investors. One name I'm sure you will have heard of, particularly if you're in property or know about property, is Knight Frank. They're a global PLC. They're probably one of the biggest property companies in the world, and we're very proud to partner with them in the Midlands area and in the north. With this partnership, we've got a great track record, and they bring developers and developer partners to us. Again, sales and marketing and the customer care side of things. So we're really proud of our heritage and our partners, and that they trust us to sell, market, and support their developments. I'll go to the next slide, please. I mentioned clients all over the world, and we've got a strong in-house team that do the reservation process. We get you to exchange. We do build updates. We've got a customer care team. We'll get you to handover and completion, after sales, mortgages, lettings, furnishings, everything you can think of. And there is quite a bit. It can be quite daunting, but we've done it millions of times. So we help our clients, and we've got the expertise, the willingness, and the people to deliver that. So that's really important to have a partner, whether you're local, national, or international. Even with our local clients, they don't want to get involved day to day. They just want it in the main as an armchair investment. Like the next slide, please. Just a brief case study. This is development we're handing over at the moment. Delivered phase 1 in January. We're delivering phase 2 about now-ish, probably August time. Fantastic development, Birmingham city centre, and quite unique in terms of it's part of an existing building. So we've kept the facade. It's part of a new build. So it's quite technically an interesting project to deliver. But again, one of our, we sold out very, very quickly. And this is our one of the show flats. Again, this is a kind of example of some of the furniture packs we do. We do furniture pack for short-term lets, long-term lets, and we do bespoke packages if you're a homeowner with interior designer. If I can, next slide, please. I mentioned it was an unusual build with the facade of the original building. So from phase 1, we've already won awards for best architecture in the UK and the West Midlands, and we're up for another award as well. Again, all to do with the architecture. And if you like buildings, it's a good looking building. If I could have the next slide, please. Thank you. The lady in the middle, and where it says door 51 to the left and right there of Claire, is some of our investors that have taken delivery. So Claire heads up the customer care team. So she'll work with the furniture suppliers if furniture's being delivered, sort the bills out, the telephones, Wi-Fi, snagging, handover. So again, we're very big on that customer service side of things, just to make it easy, as I say, particularly for people that want it armchair, don't want to get involved in the day-to-day and aren't local. If I could have the next slide, please. Again, just a quick reminder, any questions, let us know. The team will be on at the end, and we'll have a little panel so we can answer any questions that you may have about any aspect of investing in the UK. If I could have the next slide, please. So why is now a great time to invest in the UK's Northern Powerhouse? Well, let's look at the next slide and see what is that powerhouse. Well, it's a sort of government initiative aimed at boosting economic growth in the north of England. And as you can see, there's a lot of funding that's been completed. And this is to help small to medium businesses. There's current funding underway, 660 million. The latest funding was launched in March 24, and this is expanding to a larger area covering the whole of the Northeast. So this is something that's happened and is happening and has got more to come. So when we look at areas to invest in, we want to stack the cards in our favour. I mean, you can invest anywhere, and if you'd have bought long enough ago, as we all know, on average property prices double every 13 years or so. But with a bit of work and a bit of research, then, which is what we do, obviously, because we only go into an area where it's going to work for our clients. We want to get the best in terms of capital appreciation. We want to get the best in terms of rental yields. So this scheme, this funding, is really helping small to medium businesses grow, invest, and of course, relocate into these areas as well. If I could have the next slide, please. Again, with previous webinars, we talk about what to look for in an area, a city, or a region. And I guess it's all pretty common sense stuff, really. Strong economic growth, government, local, national investment, good infrastructure, regeneration, a skilled workforce, young workforce, thriving culture, business environment, communication links, which we'll come on to later. And as I say, as an investor myself, and I guess we've got a lot of investors or potential investors living, it's getting the balance right. We want the cheapest property that's going to give us the maximum capital appreciation in the best area. It's going to give us our greatest rental yield. So it's sort of finding that holy grail, and hopefully this kind of research will help you get there as well. Can I have the next slide, please? As I mentioned earlier, the track record speaks for itself. The investment made so far is really sort of making an impact in cities like Leeds, Manchester, Bradford, and everywhere you saw in that previous map. And that funding is growing. And these Northern Powerhouse cities, such as your Leeds, your Manchesters, have all been cited as the best areas for rental yields and indeed capital appreciation over the past 4 or 5 years. So that supply and demand dynamics plays a part, but that infrastructure investment really makes a difference into an area, into a city. Have the next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick, we'll make it a little bit interactive. Just a quick poll where you can click on online. So which city in the UK's Northern Powerhouse are you most interested in if you were to invest? Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Sheffield, Newcastle, or unsure? So just to give us an idea of the kind of areas that potentially you may be looking at. So it's Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Sheffield, Newcastle, or unsure. So let's see what we get there, and then we can talk a little bit more about these particular areas. Okay, so Manchester, nothing interesting. Leeds, 20%, Liverpool 20%, Sheffield 0, Newcastle 20%. So it's all fairly equal, even there. And unsure, I'd like to hear more. Like to hear about more cities. That's interesting. 40%. Okay, interesting. All right, thank you. We can close that one, Sanjan, and just move on to the next slide. So we're going to look at a couple of areas at the moment which we've highlighted for investment. So I want to talk first of all about Leeds. If I could have the next slide, please. For those not based in the UK, you can see where Leeds is. Many years ago, particularly with overseas investors who didn't really know from an investment landscape point of view, they just thought, yeah, London. And that's more these days, probably a trophy asset, I guess, because you're just not getting the rental yields. You're just not getting the capital appreciation that you once did. Our research, and indeed third-party research, shows us that over 70% of investors living in London are investing further north for obvious reasons: higher capital appreciation, lower price point, and better rental yields. So the investment landscaping in the UK is changing, and you're looking at more of these major cities in different areas and some of the satellite areas as well, because it's a strong market, particularly in that Northern Powerhouse. If I could have the next slide, please. Again, we talk a lot about prices, and there's tons of information online. Just need to Google it, let alone look at the content we have on our website. But if we look back to the early 70s, on average, property prices will double every 13 years. And if you look, as we do, all the different research, your Knight Franks, your JLLs, your Savills, you're looking at good property price growth over the next 4 years. This is for Leeds. And again, nice, steady appreciation in terms of the rental growth as well. And Leeds is the third largest city based on population in the UK. So again, all the fundamentals are in place. And in Leeds, you've got a big financial and professional sector. So you've got the people, you've got shortage of stock, like most places in the UK. We're not building enough homes. So again, perfect storm. And when we were talking with Knight Frank the end of last year, for this year, they were predicting prices would remain pretty flat, whereas they've readjusted their forecasting already, because I think January was a 0.9% increase, Feb was 0.4, so we're on track as well, you know, to give these solid prices. I'm sure anyone knows who's looking at house prices. Prices may wobble a little bit when we have the odd recession or anything comes in, but as we all know, fundamentally, house prices stay strong if you're in it for the longer haul. Back up, next slide, please. Again, what we want to look at, which Leeds has in abundance, is employment. You've got to have people that are renting them out. So again, you've got your Deloittes, your Ernst Youngs, your KPMGs. I mentioned about the financial and professional sector. Channel 4 have relocated to Leeds. Sky are there, Sky Bet headquarters. You've got Jet2, again, Channel 4, the TV. So a lot of employment, which of course we want to see to fill the apartments in the particular areas. Look at the next slide. I mentioned the progression and the companies that are attracted to these areas for various reasons, mainly cost of building, cost of housing for employees, and lower wages. So Bank of England's expanding its Northern Hub in Leeds, and Channel 4 again is making way for the new. There's Channel 4 coming to Media City in Leeds. I'll go to the next slide, please. Again, something we always talk about in areas that we invest in. As a developer, sort of / promoter, we get people, as you can imagine, you've seen some of the developers and names that are approaching us all the time. And we do so much research, and there's a lot we turn down, not necessarily because we're not sure about the developer, although that is the case in some cases, but it's all about regeneration. What's happening in the area? There's a lot of regeneration going on in the UK, Leeds in particular. Again, thanks to this Northern Powerhouse and the funding that's coming in. So you've got massive 253 hectare site, it's equivalent to 350 football pitches. It's massive. You get 8 new homes, which is a massive requirement. Now, 8,000 new homes sounds like a lot, but for the last 20 years, we should have been building something like 320,000 new homes. We're only building 200,000. If we built the amount of homes we should be building, which will never, ever happen, whoever's in power, it would take 50 years to catch up with that supply and demand imbalance. So 8,000 new homes sounds great. It is good, but it is a drop in the ocean when you look at migration, organic population growth. So again, lots happening there. New city centre park, improved connection to the surrounding areas. Planners look sort of holistically in an area in terms of what a new development will bring. It's not just about that immediate area. You've got the Wellington Place Financial District. So again, 176,000 square feet of office space, retail and leisure. Again, all important factors to support that local market. And then you've got the MTS, the mass transit system. So again, that'll create easier travel. So you're creating more jobs, more property, easier travel within Leeds, and enhanced connections for Bradford and the surrounding areas. Look at the next slide, please. Thank you. And again, university, I mean, you've got student population of 68,000. It's a youthful city. And with most of these large sort of university areas, anything up to sort of 50% of those people that have studied there will stay and work in the local area. So they're, you know, graduate programs, your Ernst Youngs, your banks, they're working and growing into that area. So as you can imagine, it's a never-ending market. And those of you know, if you're a buy-to-let investor currently, your property is never empty. It's just not a thing. it's just the way the world is and the way the market is at the moment with that shortage of stock. If I could have the next slide, please. And again, another thing we always talked about is connectivity. You've got strong rail network. Obviously, you've got the road network already in place. The infrastructure has already been done there. You've got Leeds Bradford Airport. And again, with this Northern Powerhouse, there's been rail benefits in terms of money being put in infrastructure and economic benefits, and all are improving the infrastructure really in and around the city. Okay, if I go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we talk about sort of Leeds commuter belt. We see very much so in today's world, we've got people want bigger apartments. Yes, of course, people do want to be in the city centre, but a lot of people, a growing number, want to be outside of the city centre, whereas with the right development, you've got a lot more facilities, you've got a lot more space, and you've got a lot more green. And we see the average commute today in the UK is an hour. So as you'll see, we've got a development which we're going to talk about, and then we're going to talk about the rental market in detail. We've got a huge catchment area for this particular development, and indeed other developments we've got planned for in and around the area. So Leeds is, yes, people are working and living locally, but you can see it's a massive area with the transportation links that are being well served. If I go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk about Bradford as well, and you'll see why we talk about these particular areas shortly. They'll become clear. And again, lots of potential. 30% of the population under 20s, one of the youngest cities in the UK. Booming economy. Again, got your Morrisons, your Jet2, your Yorkshire Building Society. You've got the UNESCO City of Film. So it's named City of Culture for 2025 as well. So again, part of this levelling up and this funding is going into this particular area as well. So it's what we want to see. We want to see things happening and change and regeneration taking place. I go to the next slide, please. Thank you. We've got, again, in the Bradford district, 17,000 businesses, 198,000 people in the area that are working. You've got the Bradford-based companies employs over 250,000 people, and you've got massive infrastructure, massive business. And Bradford, again, is home to the UK headquarters of Morrisons, Yorkshire Water, Hallmark Cards, etc. So again, I talked about earlier having all the fundamentals in place. Both of these locations have that. Next slide, please. And of course, they are a lot less, as you'll see, than your typical Manchester's. We price up stuff in, or have priced up stuff in Manchester and city centre areas. And because of the price of build and more importantly, the price of land, they are crazy prices. They're double the pricing that we're selling in our particular regions, and you're just not going to get the rental yields. Okay, so in Bradford, you've got 15% of students come from 130 different countries. Again, a lot of the students are retained there. There's nearly 10,000 students there across 175 countries. 145,000 people that have gone through the university. The business school is one of the oldest in the UK, and it's very well respected. Excuse me, and they partner with institutions all across the world: Philippines, India, Tanzania, Hong Kong, and it's ranked within the top 100 universities of the UK. Can I have the next slide, please? Again, I mentioned City of Culture for 2025, so that's something coming up. Again, it's nice to have. It's not one of these things that make it, that you can hang your hat on. It's all these elements, all the infrastructure, all the jobs, the regeneration, the funding. It's everything that make it a really good place to invest. If I can have the next slide, please. Again, lots of regeneration, lots spent, a lot more to come. And again, a lot around shopping as well, which always seems to be the mark. I don't know if I mentioned, but Leeds is the third most visited or shopping venue in the UK outside of London. I think we tend to sort of mark things up in terms of how popular it is from a shopping point of view. But anyway, if I can have the next slide, please. So again, I mentioned you can see Sheffield, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, Manchester Airport. So you've got the road, rail, and air infrastructure. As I mentioned earlier, yes, of course, you're going to get people that want to live in the city centre, but post-COVID, we're seeing people that want to be outside of those main city centres. They want, but still have a short commute to work. They want more facilities. They want bigger apartments. And we're seeing a lot of change, particularly, as I say, people working from home. It's making a big difference. But we'll look at that further when we look at the lettings market. I'd have the next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Mark. And Mark's going to talk through an investment that we have that sits perfectly amongst these two areas that I just talked about. And then sit tight, because then we're going to hand you over to Martin and Matthew from Address, who are going to talk in detail about the property rental market and how you can maximize your returns. Thanks very much. See you all on the other side.
Thanks, Andrew. And hello to everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Bester, the Regional Sales Director for Africa for Joseph Mews. Yeah, so it's a really exciting opportunity to be discussing this afternoon with you. There's been a lot of excitement in our offices with this project for some time now, and yeah, we just recently launched it within the last week. So there's no better time to be speaking about it. If we can jump to the next slide, please. Excuse me, there might be a bit of a delay with my slides for some reason. If I'm taking some time, just yeah, bear with me. So just as a company, it's so important to note that we definitely have an investment mindset. Whatever development we will be bringing to the market, we make sure that that is going to obviously provide value to our clients who are predominantly investors. So as much as the UK property market is a very strong, stable investment market, it's vital that you're still investing in secure assets and good areas and good developments that will keep that growth going. Because if you can, obviously, through the research or information we hopefully helping you collect, identify the right areas and have the right developments, you'll see your investment perform a lot above average than what the market does do naturally. So that's very important to note in terms of why we bring to the market what we do. So obviously we've just unpacked quite a lot out of Leeds and Bradford, two of the major cities quite close to this development. And the story speaks for itself in terms of what the tenant market or the rental market is looking for, who the tenants are. It's essential for us to make sure that we are targeting the right rental market. We don't do student accommodation or care home or whatnot. We always are targeting a higher LSM tenant, a young professional who we know is going to be able to afford the rent, will look after the property, be proud to live there, and obviously keep the exit strategy in mind so that when you do offload the asset in a medium to long-term period, you know you're going to be gaining the most value out of the sale. So the Halcyon is our new project that we've just launched in West Yorkshire. It sits in a town called Bingley. Just from high level aspects of this, we're looking at starting prices from £149,950, only a 20% deposit required. We're looking at gross rental yield of about 7%, maybe up to about 7.5%. It's due to complete Q3 next year in 2025, which gives a great opportunity for the off-plan model, securing the unit, securing hopefully in as early phase as possible. With phase one launching now, it's always the better time to get into an off-plan development, as there will be price increases along the way with each different phase, but you will benefit from that capital appreciation as the build continues. So those are some high-level facts on the actual development, but I'll unpack in terms essentially what we've got on our hands there. If we can jump to the next slide, please. So it's important to always understand the market. Where's your tenant going to be coming from? As we've been talking about, Andrew's been unpacking Leeds and Bradford, we have city that is Leeds that has over 300,000 jobs in it. We've got which is 23 minutes away commute. We've got Bradford, which is a 16-minute commute away to the city centre, where there are 200,000 jobs on offer. So there are great markets here to position this development. We obviously, just a quick reference to that travel time as well. It's all overland train as well, which is great. But if you were to compare it to a London commute, friends or family of mine still living in London, in zone 2 or 3, working in the city centre, it's taking them up to 30 minutes to get to work on the underground each day. And that is obviously something that, if you compare it to here, off looking at this map, it might seem a bit far, but the commute is actually really easy and closer than you might think. This particular development will also be marketed in these two CBDs, focusing on the Leeds financial market, which is a hustling industry there, as Andrew had spoken about. But we're essentially seeing, since COVID, a huge shift in the demand of what tenants want. Price points are very important nowadays. Obviously, the further out from the city centre you go, the more competitive the price per square metre becomes. You are also enjoying more space, and that lifestyle is definitely being more sought after. We will jump into a quick research study we've done now, which essentially, if we can go to the next slide, I'll come back to the slide. Go to the next slide, and then I'll come back to this one. But doing some studies across the UK in terms of how many people are actually working from home nowadays. And at start, you think COVID's quite a far way away behind us now, but actually that trend has continued to happen, the work from home trend. And if you look at these figures in front of you now, the lower the salary bracket that the resident falls in, the more time they actually spend in the office and the less time at home. But the greater the salary bracket you're looking at, the more time is actually spent at home. So up to £10,000 income, you're looking at working from home only 14% of the time, whereas £50,000 or more, you're looking at working from home from about 80%, which is hugely important when it comes to actually designing a development to fuel the demand in the market. So this was definitely kept in mind when designing the Halcyon. Can we just jump one slide back to where we were? A unique positioning of the Halcyon as well, whether you know it or not, but in the UK, if you're looking at purchasing an apartment or flat, traditionally you're purchasing it leasehold, and there will become a lease period on that apartment, which as a company, we wouldn't or don't sell leasehold property under 250 years, because it's not going to affect you, your grandchildren, or your great-grandchildren. But essentially, we'll sell between 250 to 999 years, but there will always be a freehold title owner that obviously decides who the management company is, service charges, etc. The unique position about the Halcyon is that we are selling the freehold ownership for the units. And what this means is that there will be a right to manage for the ownerships. So a company will be created for the 142 owners, and a freehold will transfer to this company upon the sale of the final unit. So you'll have control over management. This means that it allows owners to manage the property themselves, or appoint a block managing agent, giving them control over service charges and management. And I'll get into that in a bit, but essentially that will help streamline your net profit every month if you're able to manage your own service charges to an adequate rate that is obviously fair and not increased as you would normally see in leasehold. If we can jump 2 slides forward, please. So the Halcyon has been planned for a 3-phase launch. We've just launched phase 1. Bingley House, and there will be a following 2 phases after Bingley House. Any off-plan development, the earlier the better. You are getting a price advantage with this. Bingley House also boasts for the owners a lower service charge, as a small fact about it, it's got a few less amenities in the actual block. So the owners will pay a smaller service charge, but the residents and tenants in Bingley House still have full access to all the amenities of this development throughout. So it's not a problem, but you are getting a price advantage, which will obviously feed into the return on the investment for yourself and your yield. So that's how we've structured it. If you can jump to the next slide, please. So what we've designed at the Halcyon is certainly unique. It's going to be hard to find anything like it in the market, especially at this price point. So it's all about creating a community and a desire to live there. But not only that, for the tenant, it's also got to be a good investment case for our clients. So just to quickly break down before I jump into the amenities, you'll see on the right there, we've got two scenarios: a build to rent, which is accommodation, which is an emerging trend in the rental and housing market, and is taking over in all over the UK major cities, offering modern amenity-filled apartments. This is when a developer will develop a residential development for themselves and retain all those units for themselves and provide great amenities to obviously drive the demand to live there, but they retain all the profits and the yields of that. In the buy-to-let market, where the developer develops and as we do, sell on to the retail investor, the service charge always kind of prevents amazing amenities. You will certainly get amenities in that market, but it is a bit harder to keep a more positive net cash position or profit each month. So what we've done at the Halcyon, due to the market and the yields in the area, and also obviously the freehold ownership transfer, we're able to keep those service fees down and offer those really sought after amenities at a really good level. So we essentially, if you look at the list of amenities here, fitness studio, yoga studio, we're actually going to have a gym that has a weight room, a cardio room, men's or male and female change rooms. So a lot like a commercial gym, not just a corner in the side of a building with a few weights in it. But we're going to have private dining suites, event lounges, guest suites. What are those? Well, if you've got friends and family coming to visit you, maybe you've got a one-bedroom apartment, maybe two and the other rooms occupied, doesn't matter. You're able to book a guest suite for your guests. You can spend a comfortable evening in a studio apartment for themselves, and you can still host them in your apartment or the facilities in the development. We've got an amazing games lounge with the pool table, table tennis table, arcade games and whatnot. 18-seater cinema room, which is fantastic for hosting screenings or just movie nights, etc. You've even got a golf simulator. We've got an indoor and outdoor cafe and gym bar. We're going to have a 24-hour concierge with the development. And a really, really key part of this is we're going to have service office space. So not only will we have breakout lounges and co-workspace around, but we'll have service office space that tenants can reserve for the day, or pay for a 6-month or 12-month lease or whatnot, so they can actually work in the block and it will be fully serviced. And we've got breakout lounges and community spaces throughout the development, which will obviously provide an extension to your living space. Next slide, please. So just to come on to the actual look and feel of the development. The development's a conversion. It's a new conversion. This building was completed in 2000, and it was Bradford and Bingley Bank that was the HQ here. They got bought out of Santander and got absorbed into the regional offices there. But the second group, who I'll jump into in a bit, the developers have acquired this building and had the vision for what we're creating here. And it really is so exciting. So in the top left corner, Bingley House is that block on the right. You'll see on the roof there are 3 2-bedroom apartments with the terraces there. They've got jacuzzis, etc. So that's essentially some penthouse living, but facing west towards the Yorkshire Dale Hills. But ample parking. You'll see on the bottom left picture, there's a stream that runs between the 2 buildings, and it's very scenic and tranquil. We've got a decking area where you can sit and have coffee and work or entertain there. Also breakout lounge by the entrance. Top right is on the other side of the building. We've got indoor outdoor cafe, essentially just making it really appealing to be there in a great community. and then terrace space on the bottom right. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just to give an illustration of the spec we're building to, as I mentioned, we always are going to focus on a higher LSM corporate tenant. Someone that is going to really enjoy living here. So the space is luxurious, ample lighting. We've got floor to ceiling windows and most of the apartments. If we go to the next slide. And one key point about looking at these photos is the average one bedroom sized apartment in the UK is currently at about 496 square meters. The average one bedrooms in size in the Halcyon are about just over 800 square meters. So almost double the size of space that we're providing for the market here. So it's creating quite a strong demand for something different. Look, living in the country might not be for everyone, but living in the city also isn't for everyone. And knowing that 23-minute commute, you're in the city center of Leeds, we're 2 minutes from the train station, you've got PwC, Deloitte, you've got BT Telecoms, you've got the University of Leeds that employs just under 2,000 people, and also 16-minute commute, as I mentioned, straight in the center of Bradford with another 200,000 jobs. So this, if you can see the outlook from these apartments, the space that it provides, you're not going to find this in those city centers at all. There's no chance. Can we jump to the next slide, please? Or especially at this price. So really, really key design notes to take out of there, but essentially here's some of the amenities. The cinema room on the left, we've got on the right is the interior side of that other breakout space I showed you, but essentially 3-story high lights, windows coming through. On the left is the dining suite that you can obviously host dinner parties in, and on the right the game suite, and there's one or two more. So on the left we're looking at the gym where you got your weight room, your cardio room on the left there, essentially trying to model a commercial gym to give no reason to really need to leave the premises for fitness and whatnot. Also the actual location of the Halcyon is in amongst some great walking trails and as I mentioned earlier, the foothills of the Yorkshire Dales. So it really is inspiring and a healthy lifestyle. And on the right is the concierge, where you'd walk into the main building and be greeted with a receptionist. Jump to the next slide, please. So just to give you a bird's eye view of this development, you'll see where it's situated. It's in the Air Valley in Yorkshire. You're looking at obviously ample parking, and I've taken you through the amenities. But the great thing about it is that the build is underway. I was recently there in the end of March, early April, and it's well underway. Andrew has just recently been on site multiple times, and everything's on track for our projected completion in Q3 next year. But just is something really, really unique that is going to be positioned really well in the market. This is the town of Bingley. You've also not only got the city centres on it also, but Bingley does have shops and amenities, etc., that is obviously useful for the residents themselves. If we can jump to the next slide. So the Secon Group, our partners in this project, they are an amazing company. They've been around for over 50 years now, but they are predominant in the build-to-rent scheme industry. So they have got multiple residencies that they've built themselves, they've retained for themselves, and have done really well in that space. So we partnered with them to bring this off-plan development, utilizing their know-how and skills in the build-to-rent scheme, and for them utilizing our skill in marketing and sales and the off-plan planning, making sure that it is hitting the market needs and wants of our investors, as well as the market, the rental market, which we will get into now. So very exciting partnership, and we can't wait to see this project come to completion and operate as successfully as it is projected to. Just on to the next slide, I'm going to make an introduction to Matthew and Martin from Address to take us through the rental market in the area here and how the Halcyon is going to actually feed into it.
Okay, cheers, Mark. Hi there, guys. I'm Martin.
I'm Matt.
We are co-owners of Address. Addressed is a national lettings and property management business. It's a modern spin on estate agency, so it's not like the traditional older letting agents. And it means that we're able to deal nationally, and therefore we've got quite a unique perspective on the rental market, hence why I've been asked to come here to talk to you guys today. So the background is Matt and we originally started working together about 20 years ago or so at an estate agents down in the southeast. We worked at a company, it was a medium-sized estate agency, a couple of hundred employees, thousands of property under management. Matt worked his way up to be director of the lettings division, and I was on the investments division. And from there, we noticed a change in trend in the way that landlords were investing in properties. So the older way was people would just walk into the branches that we had. We had many with the estate agency that we had. They would walk into a branch and just take their luck. So if they lived in whatever town, they'd walk into that local branch and just buy a property and hope that it worked out all right. Now, it's time in the market, not timing the market. And so lots of people did really well from it. But as with everything in life, time changes. There's the internet, the world's getting smaller. I mean, just like we're all talking now, there's people overseas tuning in, we're managing to engage with you. So technology changes everything. And yeah, we noticed that buying habits were changing. People weren't going into branch, they were wanting to buy remotely. And there was the property investment industry was born. Property investment companies like Mews and 7 Capital were at the forefront of it. And yeah, over the last 10 years, things have really been changing, and people are buying from a distance, and they're picking up properties in different locations because they're the right deals, not just because they're local. But what that meant was you'd have landlords with portfolios with properties spread about in Manchester, Liverpool, London, Luton, Cornwall, spread about all over the place. And therefore, lettings had to change because people didn't want to have to remember a property manager in Newcastle, an accounts person in Manchester. It just became a bit tiresome, I suppose, for landlords. So we recognised the opportunity 8 years ago to set up a business that targeted these armchair investors and offer a service which allowed us to manage whole portfolios for people and just streamline their lives. So they can be professional doctors, lawyers, teachers, whatever they are, but they can be part-time property business people. And we like to think of ourselves as personal assistants to their property business. So yes, we're 8 years old, got hundreds of properties under management, a couple of thousand properties in pipeline on off-plan properties. So yeah, we're doing really well. As local estate agencies are probably having a bit of a tough time, we're growing at a pretty fast rate. We're excited by that. We get asked, how can we do that? How do we manage properties that might be 100 miles away and they've got a leaky tap? How do we deal with that? Well, again, modern technology. We will just jump onto a WhatsApp video call with the tenant, make them go up to, let's say, their boiler. That's a common one. And we will show them how to re-pressure the boiler to get it back up and running. And I'd say probably about half of all of the maintenance issues that crop up, we can fix with the tenant just over a call. And I've even known Matt in the early days to talk tenants through how to dismantle a front door lock, take it off, reassemble it and refit it, just to save 100 quid for a landlord to avoid having to call out locksmith. So whatever we can do to save some money, we really, really will do that. And then in terms of finding the tenants, we would instruct 2 local agents to do the viewings for us. We do all the referencing and AST contract setup, property management, rent collection, everything gets done by us at property management. The actual viewings, we hire 2 local agents to the property to do the running around for us. That comes out of our margin, so you don't have to pay for that. That's us that pay for that. But naturally, we have a cost saving by not having to have local branches dotted all around the country. We save a lot of money from that, so we pass on that saving to you. So that allows us to pay for those guys to do that. Members of Property Ombudsman, Safe Agent, DPS, all of the things that you'd expect. Got great reviews, 4.5 to 5 stars on multiple platforms with hundreds of reviews. Only just this morning, we found out one of our guys has won Best Male Agent in the UK in the whole property industry for this year's All Agent Awards. So we're really, really proud of that. It's 2 years in a row that he's won. So we're customer service focused, we're easy to communicate with, And if you've got a property anywhere in the country, we'll be able to help you. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, so now on the topic matter. So the difference between the North and the South. So this week we have collected some data from Rightmove to try and demonstrate to you this divide between the North and the South, because that's what we've been asked to do. And we find this quite a funny subject, actually, with our portfolio being throughout the country, but I'll explain why in just a moment. So as you can see, some of the popular locations: Liverpool 28%, Manchester 34%, Birmingham 33%, Leeds 26%. So just for clarity, this is the percentage of properties that are currently on the market that already have a tenant lined up to move in. So it's not to say that 70% can't be rented out. It just means that they might have gone on in the last few days and just need a bit more time. But what it says to us is it's showing the supply versus demand. So we'd like to pose a question to you. London, what do we think the percentage would be for London? With those other cities, can we bring up the poll now, Sanjana? So with those other cities averaging 30%, London, understandably, is the nation's capital. It's they've got the biggest population, biggest economy. So naturally, it's got some things going for it. It's just that it's more expensive in the first place. So what do you think it is? More or less, a lot more than those northern cities? What do you think? No Googling. I want to really test you guys. Okay, so the answer is 25%. Okay, well, actually, someone must have got their phone out, I reckon, because someone got it right with the less than 30%. But yeah, I mean, we've done the webinar this morning, and most people said a lot more. They thought over 60%, and that would be understandable because the common perception is that investing in London is safe, investing everywhere else is risky. It's just not true, and it's just not our experience of things. Now, we've got nothing against London. Matt and I have both invested in London, made lots of money from it. So there's nothing wrong with property there. And if you give us a property to rent out in London, no problem at all. But if you were to give us a property up in those northern cities, also, no issues. So the point to be made is actually the northern cities are just as solid. There's the supply and demand actually goes more in your favour up north than it does down the south. So now let's look at the difference between towns and cities. So we like to refer to these as secondary locations, these smaller satellite towns. So we've got those same cities we talked about before, but now we're going to introduce some towns which are commuter towns just on the outside of them. So with Leeds, we understandably picked on Bingley, given that we've got the Halcyon. So as you can see, that's 43% versus 26%. So the supply versus demand is in a landlord's favour considerably more in Bingley than in Leeds. London, we picked on Tunbridge. That's the town that we're based in. Landslide, massive one. 74% of all properties on the market have already got a tenant found for them. So there's a real shortage of properties there. Liverpool, we've chosen Chester, nice town on the outside, 54 versus 28. Manchester, home to the greatest team in the world. We've picked Macclesfield, 44% versus 34%, and Birmingham, it is Kidderminster, 52 versus 33. Now, there's we didn't have any preference with those particular towns. You can understand why we picked Bingley and Tunbridge, but we did actually test a load of other towns on the outskirts of this place, and it was the same trend. The point is, if you come off of the beaten track, then there's great deals to be had. There's you can take a lot of confidence that if you come into some of these smaller towns, you're going to find tenants. We live on a little island. There's a shortage of supply, shortage of properties, as Andrew and Mark have already pointed out. We just don't build enough, and so therefore, there's a real lack of private rented properties. So just to give you a bit of confidence, it doesn't need to be London, it doesn't need to be Manchester. You can look in these, as I call it, off the beaten track with some of these other towns, and you'll actually find you've got very little competition from other landlords, and there's plenty of tenants there. As it happens, as a point of reference, we actually only allow ourselves 1 week void period between tenancies for our whole portfolio. So it doesn't matter to us if a property's in Doncaster or if it's in London or Cornwall. We always, when we receive notice from a tenant when they're going to be moving out, we start listing the property, start trying to find a tenant, and we will find a tenant before the old one moves out. And we will not allow the new one to move in until 1 week after the old one's moved out. And that just gives us 7 days to get the place up to scratch for the new tenant. But we don't give ourselves 2 weeks or 2 months if it's in a northern place and 1 week if it's London. Far from it. To us, it's all the same. There are tenants in London, there's tenants in Leeds, and everywhere in between. So that's the point that we wanted to make here. Can we have the next slide, please? So just targeting Leeds in particular here, what we can see, that line along the bottom, that is representing zero growth in rental prices. So there's a brief moment, there's a trough there, January 21, there's a brief moment where there was no growth just for a few months. But everything else, there's always growth. And Matt's been in lettings for 20 years, and he would always say to me, every year we increase rents. There's never a year that we don't increase rents. It's just a case of, do we move them up a little bit or a lot? But rents do always go up. Leeds, as we can see here from the Office of National Statistics, show us that Leeds, since we've been in operation the last 8 years, rents in Leeds go up by 5%. Now, we don't see any reason for that to change because there's still a shortage of supply. Developers over the last few years have got absolutely hammered by inflation. So there's been a bit of a slowdown in the supply of properties, and that's going to have a knock-on effect, in our opinion, for years. And we get to see this stuff because we get referred things from developers and people buying off plan all the time. So yeah, we just see this continuing. And I think the figures that Andrew or Mark gave just a little bit earlier from Night Knocks suggest a 6% growth for the next 4 years. We just look at it as it's been 5% for 8 years, and we don't see any reason why that's going to drop. So yeah, that's our opinion on the matter. Next slide, please. So the next thing is to talk about the builds to rent. This is a new phenomenon that we've started to see come into the rental market. And we've seen it because some of these properties have been competition to us when we've been renting out our own properties in our own portfolio. So we wanted to show you the difference it makes to have these high spec, high amenities within developments. So we've got a few examples here. The top two are in Liverpool, then it's Manchester, and then Leeds. So the top left-hand corner is Alexandra Tower. It's a landmark building on the waterfront. We manage 30 properties there, so we know it very well. It's extremely prestigious. If you buy a postcard of Liverpool, the chances are the sloping roof of Alexandra Tower will be on that skyline there. We get 950 or 1100 for a 1 bed or a 2 beds in that building. You maybe get a touch more, 1150 for a 2 bed now. But it's a really nice new development. A couple of doors along is the Lexington by Moda. Now they are a developer that build for themselves, they then rent out. So they build to a high spec deliberately to get higher rents, and then they just benefit from that higher yield themselves. As you can see, they get for the 1 beds 1325 or 1,700 for the 2 beds. So we get 1,100 for a 2 bed, they get 1,700. And it's not to do with the square feet. Our square feet in Alexandra around 700 to 800. So they're big, quite nice apartments. Lexington are definitely no bigger. Some of the units are smaller actually, but they get considerably more. And there's nothing we can do to compete with them because they offer a whole experience to their tenants. There's co-working space and gym, and I think they've got a rooftop on that one. So it's all about the experience, and probably the tenants there are quite proud and boast that they live there, and they do pay for that sort of prestige, that privilege. So 1,700. Then we've got Victoria Mill in Manchester. We've got properties there that we manage as well. 850 for a 1 bed, 1,100 for a 2 bed, and then just down the road at Oxygen, which is a much higher spec. Both of them new builds. Victoria Mill's an older conversion, but they're both new builds. And they get 1,350 and 1,500, so considerably more for that high spec. And then we've got in Leeds Tate House, we've got 1 beds there, 850, 2 beds, 1,050, compared to the new New York Square development. Again, I think that's by Moda, again, very high spec. And they're getting 1,520 or 1,935, nearly £2,000 for a 2 bed in New York Square. So that's in Leeds. So we're getting roughly 1,000 for Tate House, which is a typical new build, buy-to-let, type investment, versus Moda getting nearly £2,000 for their New York Square. So going back to what Mark was saying before, definitely that sort of build to rent high, ultra high spec, that experience that you give tenants living there, people will pay for it. And it's a new thing that's coming in. We didn't see this 10, 20 years ago. This is something we're just seeing really in the last 3, 4, 5 years. It's not been long at all. So definitely in regards to Halcyon, we're very excited to be part of that, because it's very rare that those sort of ultra high spec developments get built by developers, for other people, because there is a trade-off. By giving away so much communal space, they aren't able to build as many apartments, and normally developers are in it for a short, quick win. They squeeze in as many apartments as they can to get the maximum number of sales. They don't care after that because they've moved on. But with the Halcyon and Lexington, Oxford, New York Square, they've taken a long-term view and they've given away a lot of square footage for communal space, and that's going to aid to the long-term living experience of the tenants. So it's really designed for tenants. That's what we think the Halcyon is going to give, and that's why we think the rents are going to be so high there, and that's why we want to be part of it. Okay, the next slide, please.
So we've just put together some frequent asked questions just to sort of get ahead of any questions that you might have. So yeah, number one, what to do following completion. So we're here to work alongside Joseph Mews and work hand in glove with them. Should you decide to use us to manage the property for you, we will work alongside them with getting the keys and obviously putting the property on the market. As we said before, we'll put that on with 2 local agents, so we'll create the natural competition and get your property let as quickly as possible. So question 2, how long did it take?
Oh, hang on, you forgot. First, the biggest priority is to celebrate, get drunk, put it on Facebook, Instagram.
Take your snaps.
Yeah.
Question 2, how long will it take to find a tenant once I complete? We look at getting a tenant on the initial tenant find in 4 to 6 weeks. Obviously, it's our job to get a tenant as quickly as possible. We're here to impress, we're here for the long term. When we deal with our clients, I've still got clients that I've dealt with over the last 20 years, to be honest. We're looking for the long haul, so we will get a tenant in there as quickly as possible. Obviously, when the property comes up for relet, they have to give us notice. We have a week's void in between, and then we get the new tenant moved in as well. And obviously we work on commission as well. So, for selfish reasons, we get people in there as quickly as possible as well. So question 3, do I need insurance? Generally speaking, yes, you do. With an apartment, it would come under the service charges. So that will be taken care of. You can have contents insurance. But to be honest with you, we always take a 5-week security deposit to secure against the property. Most people are happy with that. But if you did want contents insurance, we could arrange that for you, no problems at all. In terms of rent protection as well, that's also there for ultimate peace of mind. Again, we've got a fantastic package that we can put forward for you. It covers you up until vacant possession. There's £100 worth of cover there as well. So that's an optional service that we can provide for ultimate peace of mind. But we're happy to discuss that with you when the time arises. Question 4, should I do short-term lets or regular AST lets? So short-term lets, there usually is big headline figures, but with that come expensive fees. I mean, I've sat down and had a look recently for one of my clients, and we were debating whether they should continue with short-term lets or switch over to the regular ASTs. And when you look at the amount of costs, advertising, the management fee, there's a lot of people taking a cut out of the short-term lettings industry. So in that instance, we actually just decided that it would be better to go down the short-term let route. Obviously, there's lots of things to consider. There's occupancy rates. yeah, the actual rent fluctuates seasonal as well. So there's lots of things to consider, but the biggest thing to look at is whether or not you can actually have short-term lets on a development. And unfortunately, on this one, you can't. So it's a bit of a moot point on this development itself. But with traditional ASTs, you've got the security, you sort of let it and forget about it, because you move a tenant in there and they're in there for 12, 18 plus months. So it's just a case of finding the tenants and moving them in and moving on to the next development that you want to. Question 5, what bills am I responsible for? So initially you'll be responsible for the utility bills. Once a tenant is found and moves in, they take over all those bills for you. So we can help set that all up initially. Yeah, that's the bills fundamentally that you'll be responsible for. And then we've got question 6, which is the age-old argument of furnished or unfurnished. So with a furnished property, you will get more rentals. It is more for a furnished property. However, you have got the additional costs of obviously purchasing the furniture and the wear and tear and upkeep. Unfurnished, the pros to unfurnished is most tenants tend to stay longer with unfurnished. It's a much bigger decision for a tenant to think about moving an unfurnished property. They're going to have to hire a van, move all the sofas. So we do find that tenants tend to stay longer with an unfurnished property. Yeah, so that's all the questions there for you. Next slide, please.
Okay, and yeah, we just wanted to take this opportunity to put out there a exclusive offer for all the Joseph Mews clients. So we're willing to offer a year's free management on the house here. No tie-in period. Use us for just a year. If you don't love us by the end of it, then you can move on to another agent. We are willing to back ourselves, because we believe, like most people, once you join with us, you will love us, and you will probably end up giving us more properties rather than just the original one that we started with. So we'll do it just exclusively for Joseph Mews clients, 1 year's free management. If you were to give us additional properties, then we would even offer out 5% as the management fee whilst the tenants are in situ in those ones. So if you're paying 10% or whatever, that's another agent, you can switch to us for free. We'll cover any switch costs. If there's any termination fees in your old agent, we'll cover those costs. And yeah, we'll manage your properties for 5%. So you probably save half of your management fee straight off the bat. Our normal pricing structure is 10.98 for the management fees, 10% for one property, 9% for 2, 8% for 3. So there's economies of scale. The more properties you give us, we've only got one landlord to deal with for 2 properties or for 3 properties. So that bit of time savings to us will pass on to you, incentivize it to bring our prices down. And then in terms of our additional costs, our tenant finder fees is only £200 a tenant. So more often than not, agents will charge a month's rent as a tenant finder's fee. So in the case of this, could be over £1,000 just to find a tenant. We're only £200. So even when you check the small print for things like tenant finder fees, you'll see we're very, very competitive. But we're able to be so because we're this modern way of working. And as I say, we're growing far, far faster than any traditional agents. And it is because the pricing structure, the ease of communication, speak to us on WhatsApp, email, Zooms, whatever's easier for you guys. We'll just make your life easy, keep things ticking along, keep you in the loop. And yeah, I think you'll find it a lot less stressful working with us than dealing with lots of other traditional agents. So yeah, that's it from us. Next slide, please. And back to you, Andrew.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Really interesting stuff there, gents, particularly on the build to rent, the way the market's going, and also more importantly, the increase in revenues. So we've just got a couple of questions, or there's quite a few around the same topic. About the service charge. We've kept the service charge low, and as Mark was shown, you're in control of that because the developer who runs the build to rent scheme will set everything up and then choose a company to run the block management. But as owners of the freehold, you're free to change, so you can control and keep an eye on that. Also, service charge is £2.28 a square foot, so it's kind of at the lower end of the going rate today, particularly when you look at all the facilities. But the facilities don't cost a lot to run, because things like the cinema, that's space that's there, and it's, to be fair, where the cinema is, it's space that couldn't really be used for an apartment. You're paying, or your guests are paying, if they're using the guest rooms or the guest suite. So if you've got someone visiting, they're paying. The concierge would be the other sort of main charge, really. Yes, it's 24 hours, but we're doing daytime hours or weekdays is going to be manned, and then evenings and weekends it's going to be an app, an AI app. So again, you've got all the same facilities, but without a physical person. So all this keeps the service charge there. The service charge will always be at a reasonable level, because these facilities and services are fantastic, and they need to be kept in tip-top condition to attract the tenants. So that's really important as well. And things like the serviced offices, they're only people will pay those. They've got all the co-working spaces and the lounges which they can use. But if they want to physically rent an office with all the services there, that's payable. So that's profit making for those that want it. So that really helps keep the service charge down. We talked sort of gross figures of 7%, but it's important that we keep the net figures high there as well. We have some other questions, not really about rental, although one that sort of is important. It's a long lease, as I think we talked about, 999 years. Because you own the freehold, there's no ground rent. We had a few questions about structuring in a limited company or mortgages. So again, we can advise, or we've got partners that can advise on those particular areas. So if you want to, we're going to put up a slide in a minute. Click, fill that in, and then one of the team will be in touch, depending on what region you're in, and we can have a little one-to-one. If I can have the next slide, we'll have a little one-to-one session with myself, Mark, or Johnny. Johnny looks after the UAE, who's not on the webinar today, or one of his team members. So on the screen now it says, would you like to book a free property investment consultation? So if you want to talk about the halcyon, mortgage, current UK property market update, or anything else like limited company structures or taxation, click in that and the team will be in touch. So I think that's it from me. I'd just like to say thanks very much to Mark and to Martin and Matthew. Very informative. The video of this webinar will be sending out as well, and as I say, on our YouTube channel there's other topics that we've covered in previous months. So thanks once again, and hopefully see you all soon. Thank you.